People who knew murderers, when did you know something was off? The murderer I know was more of an acquaintance or casual friend. He lived down the hall from me and we hung out sometimes, but not like just the two of us. Still, we chill at each other's place regularly. I passed him one day in the stairwell and I said hi. He said hi back, but called me by the wrong name. He was really distracted and kind of awkward. He didn't make eye contact and kept moving. I remember thinking maybe we don't know each other as well as I thought. Later he was playing Nintendo. Yep, my N64. This was a while ago with my roommate. When I came home, he apologized and said his mind was elsewhere. A couple days later there are cops all over the building, interviewing people and searching his place. They'd found the guy's roommate with a bullet in the back of his head in an abandoned lot across town. The next day he confessed. Holy shit. Did they ever find out why he did it? And that's why you always leave a note. I moved to a new town when I was 19 and was making new friends at my new job. I met this girl at work and she invited me over to hang out with her and her best friend. I went and the best friend's boyfriend was there and the vibes were way off. I was uncomfortable. He was cold and just seemed angry for no reason. They had mentioned to me before he got there that he was always controlling and had hit the girl before. Turns out controlling was an understatement. She came home one day and he was digging a hole in the backyard and she asked what he was doing and he replied, digging your grave. He hit her, said if he can't have her, nobody could have her, all of that. So eventually she left him and had to get a restraining order and everything. He somehow persuaded her to get in a car with him on her work break and they went missing for a few days. Turns out he stabbed her to death, threw her in a river and killed himself. I met the girl only a few times and him only the once, but the face that I was in such close proximity to someone capable of that gives me chills. She was so young. It was really sad. Unfortunately, the stats on women being murdered by their intimate partners are pretty grim. This is just one of many cases. Unfortunately, yeah. Women are more likely to be murdered after they leave their abusers. Had an employee on my work crew. Acted strange and won't listen to direction. Had goofy huge sideburns. Ended up going to jail for a short time. When he got out he shot his GF and her parents. Starburns? Question mark? Exclamation mark. When he said there was a teenager, his mother and his stepfather lived around the corner from me. My mother knew them better than myself, but we all thought they were lovely. A couple of years ago the son went to the hospital several times asking for help. He claimed he had voices telling him to kill his stepfather, but each time he went he was released and told to come back. They would give an appointment. A few weeks later during a small argument he stabbed his stepfather to death in the front garden. He turned himself in the next day and wasn't convicted as he sought help before it happened. Instead, he got the treatment he needed. Edit. I see a lot of people wondering if it might have been a definite/planned murder. It wasn't. The way he was killed and how the son acted after removed any doubt. This is both really sad that they kept turning him away and also really good that they didn't convict him. I'm curious as to why we only hear about these voices that tell people to do bad things. Are there ever voices that tell people to do good things? What is it that makes these mental illnesses make the voices tell them to do things like kill people? I didn't. He was the sweetest, kindest, gentle giant kind of guy. Kind of a weirdo, but still a great guy overall. I remember once that he shed a tear just by talking about his kid because he was so filled with emotion from having him in his life. He turned out to kill his wife, kidnap his child, start the longest Amber Alert in the history of Canada. As he tried escaping to a different province he killed another man to steal his car. I'm still unsure today if I should have seen anything at any point. It comes to haunt my nightmares from time to time. I worked with someone that killed someone in self-defense. I didn't believe his story, which is probably why he served time for the incident. The story he told was that he was having sex with some girl and her husband came home and found them and immediately attacked him. He said he didn't want to fight him, but killed him in self-defense. Some months after we hired him, we got word that he also had some child molestation in his criminal record. Once that word spread around he disappeared. He had stolen some stuff from coworkers before he left. 2 weeks later he was robbed and killed outside a bar near work. I know a dude who actually did kill someone in self-defense. He joined the army a year out of high school, 2 years before 9/11. But his job in the army wasn't combat focused, so he didn't see any action. But he had the training. A few years out of service someone broke into his townhouse he was renting from his parents. It was the middle of the night. He kept a handgun next to his bed because it was just him and his girlfriend. No kids. He went down the stairs and saw someone in his living room with something in his hand. It was dim, but he knew what a kitchen knife looked like. He aimed the gun at him and said, "Get out. Now." Dude charged him, so he put 3 rounds into his chest. Killed him then and there. It was someone he went to high school with. It ducked him up pretty bad for a while. The reason I know so many details is that he would often talk about it on forums and social media whenever gun rights issues would come up or a shooting tragedy happened. Goes hand in hand I guess. Anyway, we fell out of touch after I deleted FB. But last I saw he was happily married with 2 young kids and looked like a very dedicated father. Even if it was justified, it weighed heavily on him. And that's something I hope I never have to deal with. My high school boyfriend killed his stepfather in 8th grade. Stepfather was beating up the boy's mother as he often did. The boy tried breaking it up, and the stepfather threw him into a wood stove. The boy grabbed a bat and attacked the guy until he was dead. He moved away for a while, but returned a few years later. I dated him for over a year once we were in high school. He never ever talked about it, but he was obviously pretty messed up from it. Alcoholic at a young age etc. Having my own children now, it breaks my heart to think what that little 13-year-old boy went through. Not my experience, but my grandmother's. She got pregnant at 15 by my grandfather and had to get married. 1960s. He was extremely abusive and my grandmother went to the police multiple times because she felt like he would wind up killing someone. But they just didn't take it seriously and ignored her. He later went on to strangle and beat a 14-year-old girl to death with a baseball bat just a couple years later. Edit. I'm editing to include this because I've seen a couple people asking/speculating. But my grandmother did get away from him. They had been separated when this happened and he was put in prison. But I do know he got out, and from what I was told, it was on insanity. I'm not 100% on the details of his release as he is a pretty taboo topic. But he finally died in 2014, though I didn't find that out until a year later. I had only ever met him once. And thank you guys for your words! Exclamation mark. I wasn't expecting this to get the attention it did, so I'm still going through comments. I'm so very sad for what your grandmother endured. In tandem to being devastated she wasn't taken seriously in trying to warn the police how dangerous he was, which resulted in a young child being murdered. Was your grandmother always stuck with him? Or did she get away from him? I was friends with a girl whose dad ended up being discovered as a serial killer. I never discussed it with her, but she's very defensive over it from what I've heard. She's in an impossible situation, I think. She may well just want her privacy, and for her not to be asked about it. What could she say? He's her dad. She's bonded to him forever. No doubt she has many happy memories involving him. If the family had no idea he was dangerous, and he put on a good act of being a good person, where do they begin to reconcile who he really was with their experiences? Especially if he says he's innocent. Those moments probably weren't an act either. He most likely did genuinely love and give them true affection, like a father would. Not saying he's not a bad person, or justifying anything in this semi-hypothetical. Just saying that people are still people. A murderer doesn't just murder people. 90% of their life is spent doing other things like actually loving and building bonds with others. It's sad, because they ruined all of that for themselves, and for those their actions affected. Never. He was a seemingly happy kid who brought a backpack full of, probably stolen, SNES games over to my place pretty regularly. The last time I posted this, I said he killed another teen in a drug-related turf war. I looked up his case afterwards, and it was actually 2. Same here. Worked with a kid for a year or so, and he was so sweet and nice. I went off to college, and that summer I visited home, and ran into him. He was his usual nice, sweet self. He killed 2 classmates and shot a third about 20 minutes later. I never had any weird feelings from him and was completely shocked to learn this news the next day. OMG, I can never imagine bumping into a person you knew for so much time and then finding out that he killed someone just 20 minutes later. Holy duck. I knew this kid my entire life. We were friends in elementary and middle school, more middle school. He was your typical redneck kid, but a kind person. Imagine if Pinky from Pinky and the Brain grew up in the rural south. Well, as people do in school, we drifted apart. He honestly wasn't the person in the group I was friends with, he was just in that circle. So we went about our lives. A year after we graduated in the same town we all grew up in, he killed his entire family. Mother, brother, stepsister, father, just for no reason. Nothing really provoked him from my understanding. He left and went to ride abs with his friend later that day. They caught him, and he had no memory of it. He went to court and got life, and never could recount a single moment, at least he said. It was weird seeing this kid who was to your knowledge just dumber than a bag of hammers, yet a odd innocence to him, on trail for such atrocities. He just sat stone-faced the entire time, almost like he didn't understand what had happened. Not to say I felt bad for him, but I felt something. Sadness perhaps. My BO dad ended up murdering my stepmom. Everyone in my family, my mom and 2 older brothers, definitely knew that something was up. He had severe anger issues and was very abusive. Some of the earlier memories I have are of him choking one of my brothers. He even almost choked my mom to death a couple of times. Obviously my mom was smart and divorced him as he didn't want to see him kill my brothers. Years later I come home from school and my mom and stepdad take us all to the side and tell us he shot our stepmom and was currently in jail. None of us were surprised. If anything, I was just so grateful my mom left him. It's so strange that I'm directly related to a murderer. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.